Hi, welcome to Building SaaS with Python and Django. My name is Matt Lehman, and I work on Django apps on this stream. And we're going to continue on one of my Django apps this evening and work on some bug squashing this evening. So I have my app live on production, and my spouse has started using it for the school year and has already run into some bugs that need to be corrected to make her experience better. So we're going to focus a bit on those. I'm here to answer questions about Django as well as work on this project. So if you have any questions, you feel free to ask me anything about Python, Django, or web development in general. That's what the goal of this stream is all about. So you can do that. If you want to keep in touch with me, there are ways to do so. There's my handle above is mblehman on GitHub and on Twitter. I've got a website at mattlehman.com where you can subscribe to my email list. You can search for me on YouTube, which is where you might be watching this later. But and for those on Twitch, there's a link down below to a Discord if you want to ask me questions that don't fit into tweets very well. I'm there as well to check out what you have to say. So the problems that I'm seeing in the app, or my spouse encountered in the app as she started using it, related to certain date views. And I've tried to recreate the scenario over on the local settings, so we're not looking at her data. And it wasn't hard to recreate, thankfully, so this is a good, easy place to start. I've created a brand new school year that is set for this year, and there were two problems, and you can actually probably see one of them here already, but we'll do that, and we'll bring up the next day as well to see the second problem. So the problems were this: like on this view, we have a week view that shows one course and the 3 activities for this week, and you can see what she found is that as soon as she completed one task, it worked fine for the week view because the completed tasks in School Desk look like grayed out text, as you can see here. And the next couple days look fine. And to make this example really clear, I used first, second, third as the descriptions for the tasks. So that's each of these is individual tasks. So the problem comes about in 2 different spots. One spot is on the daily view. The daily view, instead of showing the second task for tomorrow, as it's supposed to be, it's actually showing the third. So something is up with the logic that is off, probably some kind of off by 1 error in the logic that needs to be accounted for to show the actual proper views for what's ahead. And in fact, it's showing nothing for Friday, and that's not true. There's actually a task that's supposed to be set for Friday. We're going to use this as our source of truth because this is the accurate situation that I expect to see. 1 completed task and then a task to do on Thursday and 1 on Friday. So that's one scenario, is that the counter for the daily view seems to be jumping ahead by 1. Conversely, there's another view that's particular for the student, and it is meant to show its defaults to this kind of view that has what's left to do. But notice that today's date of this recording is January the 13th, and it's showing the second task as an uncompleted thing to do. But the reality is the one completed task already happened. So it should be showing the second task on the 14th and third task on the 15th. So it's another off by 1 kind of error, but it's in another direction, I think. So those are the 2 kind of problems we need to solve. And curiously, even in this process of solving it, I've got a new onboarding flow, and during that onboarding flow, in setting up this data, I encountered a different problem. So there's a third problem that we might solve today that is unrelated to this date logic, but if we have time, we'll get to that too. The priority, though, is to get these 2 corrected because my wife does want to be able to use the daily view every day and to be able to do printouts of what her activities are for the day, and it's not very helpful when everything's off by a day. So that's our goal. We're going to look at the data of the context, trying to figure out what's going on, and correct it. Now, the tricky part is the logic to actually build the schedules, and the reason why it's wrong is it's fairly complicated stuff of what it has to query, because the way that tasks are built, the way that all of this data is built, is I have a list of tasks in the database, and in order to do lookups into the future, I have to index into that list of tasks. And so my speculation here is that the calculation of the index is wrong. So when it's looking into the database, rather than finding the second task as it's supposed to, it is coming up with a different answer. And so there's one of two outcomes here. This is probably either going to be a really easy change and then be like, oh yeah, it's an off by one kind of thing, or it's going to be a rather difficult change to find. Hopefully it is the former and not the latter. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to drop them in the chat. Chat is open. Most people are polite, although I had someone quite rude last week, but generally we have a good discussion in there, and I welcome your thoughts. Let's get to it. Let's go to, all right, so the first thing we need to do is find, this is the daily view. That's the view that we need to consider. And maybe actually before we even get to the code, let's look at the context so to see what we can figure out from just staring at the context data. It might be enough to clue us in. So what I'm going to do is restart the application server, and this time I have some environment variables configured so that if debug toolbar is set to some value, it will run the application server with debug toolbar. I don't use that all the time because debug toolbar does slow down the application a bit, and I don't need that all the time. So I've got it up again, and we can come down into the templates area and look at the context. Context is going to be where all of this stuff is that we care about. You can see it has a bunch of things in here. The big important one though is the schedules area, and it's a list because there are and you might be able to, it's a little hard to determine from this UI, but it's a list of dictionaries, and the dictionary contains the student. So if you have multiple kids like I do in my home, it would actually be a list of one item per kid that's enrolled. And within that dictionary per student is a list of their courses, and within that is a dictionary that has the course and the task that's there. So you can see that there's not actually much information here. The context doesn't actually tell us a whole lot, except that it is showing this third task. So this is not going to be a super useful tool for us in this context, but we may use it later for other things. So we can stop that for now and just assume that we're going to need to get into the actual daily view and check out how the context is built over there. So that daily view I consider it one of the core views of the application, because it is where the users will be spending a ton of their time, and so I have defined it here. So let's see if we can find it. It's a class-based view, and it's called the daily view, so it's not too hard to find. And we need to dig into the area where it is building out the schedules. And so we have, I've added some stuff on this to do some checking to know that when a user doesn't have any data, and one of the streams I did a few weeks ago was, what do you do when there is no data to show? You don't want to show nothing, because that leads to a bad experience. In fact, I was on a website today, and I did a search on that website, and it was like a new website. And rather than say no results found, it was just a blank empty page. So I was confused, and I didn't know if I had done something wrong, but I went back and I changed my search to something that would have results, and suddenly stuff appeared. So it was clear to me that this new website had just not considered that empty state of no search data. So similarly, in my application, I try and fill in empty state information whenever possible. So we've got a bit of that here, but this is the case when there is actually data. So it's this get daily context function. We can dig in here and go down, and eventually we'll get to the schedules. And the schedules is, like I said, that was the piece of data that was incorrect. So something about the schedule building is wrong. As we dig in further, we can see that it's not going to be falling into this category because it's not returning an empty schedule. There is data, so that's something else, which means it's getting down into this function. So we're peeling back the layers. We've got layers and layers of stuff to delegate to the appropriate code so that things are more understandable. But we're now down to the point where get student schedule is the piece that has some of this interesting logic in it. And it's probably, we can probably, in fact, let's try this. Let's print the task index. So I believe what's going to be happening is when this runs, this will probably print a 2, because that is the third task in the list of tasks for that course. So we'll start up the server again, we'll reload the page, and it will, I think, print 1. Why did it print a 1? Good question. It was not what I expected. What's going on here? It filters out completed. Oh, that could be it. So think about it this way. If we're filtering out, you can see there's completed tasks, and we're getting the tasks for the course, and then we're taking out the ones that have, so this is going to return a query set, get tasks for course, I believe, and it's going to then take out the ones that are the completed task IDs. And so since there is, sure 314, I can try and bump up the font a little bit, see if that helps. Let's see, hopefully that's a little better for you. What you can see, yeah, no problem. What you can see here is that, think about this scenario. So we've got, what do we have? 3 tasks, and 1 task is complete, and it's using, so the index that came back from that function that we saw was 1. So if that means that if it's going to be indexing into the 2 remaining tasks, then it's going to skip over the one we want. There's the one for Thursday, the day after tomorrow, since this is not everybody's watching the day of recording, and going to report on that Friday one. So that's no good. So I'm trying to think of like where we need to go to actually adjust this. And let me think on this for a second, because this is where this logic gets a little tricky. We'll probably get down into the get task count in range function is probably the right place. Let's see. Because we definitely still want to filter out, I believe we still want to filter out the tasks, the completed tasks. We can't just say get all the tasks for the course and go to a specific ID. Is that accurate? I think that's accurate for a couple of reasons. This is where stuff gets a little weird, is that it's possible to complete multiple tasks on a single day. We can't assume 1 task per day, because there are ways that you can trigger more than one to be on there. So you have to take the completed tasks out of the equation, and you have to look at the remaining tasks and do it that way. So I think we might be able to use the same task index, possibly, but we're going to have to account for that completed work. So I'm wondering now if it might be just like an edge case, or here, hold on. Let's go to the school year model where this method is, and see if there's anything we can learn there. I might have documented it. I hope I did. Okay. And it has to be a method because there's stuff going on here. And our start date, well, these are good questions here of which path is it actually going down? Because the answer is 1, and it's possible that it is returning 1 from this scenario. So I don't actually know. So let's continue to poke at this. And if I had logging in this website, then I probably wouldn't need to do what I'm doing right now, but this is okay to see what's going on. So I put in some print statements there, and I'm going to refresh. And now if we return to the terminal over here, so the start date is the 13th, and the end date is the 14th. So that's fine. And if that means that this is not the condition block that gets executed, so that's good news. And we're now ready to go farther in here. We've got so it means that if it's starting at 0, it must at least come in here once. And I know for a fact that none of these dates are breaks, so that's not a problem. So it's not a break, so that's true. And the course runs on this day, so that's where it adds the 1. And the dates to check is less than or equal to the end date. So I think all of this is telling me, I think that this method is correct in this is how many, get the task count in the range. Well, maybe not. Hold on. This is supposed to be a task count. I'm sorry, y'all. It's been a while since I've looked at this code. You all have maybe most likely never looked at this code, so you're learning with me as I'm going along. But I got to reload in my head, like how did I implement this? So interestingly, it says be inclusive of start and end. So that's, I think, where this is getting messed up. Because on the 13th, there's a task. And on the 14th, there's a task. So that's the start date and the end date. And if it's inclusive of the start and the end, I think that there's 2 tasks, isn't there? In my accounting. Does that sound accurate? Let's look. So there's this first one and the second one. These are the 2 dates. If it's inclusive of both dates, there's definitely 2. So I would expect that this number would actually come back as 2. So why did it not? That's the question. Let's see. Let's print date to check in this loop and see how many times this loop executes. And then we can come back here and refresh the page. Whoops. Did it not actually go where I thought it was going to go? Maybe it did do something I didn't anticipate. Well, shoot. It should at least be printing out the task index. Did it not do that? I'll refresh it one more time. What's going on? I'm trying to space it out just so I can see for certain. Sometimes that's something that I do usefully to help me separate visually and just quickly gain insight into something happening. It's not even logging anymore. So what happened? Where did our prints go? It almost seems like we're not actually going down where I expected to go at all, which is no good. But that can't be right. Hey, Kuhatlim, welcome back. I really should ask you for your phonetic pronunciation sometimes. I'm sorry that I get that wrong, but good to see you again. Trying to debug some issues with scheduling tonight, which is like, it's simultaneously the most important part of the application and the trickiest part to get right. It's where a lot of the value is, which makes the code to look at a little bit tricky to get right. But now I'm getting confused because it's supposed to be coming through here, and I don't know, like, where are we not getting anything? This should, if I write that code, okay, there it goes. It says it modified. What? What? Why are you not printing anything anymore? All right. What's going on? Let's try, maybe, okay, I'm going to raise an exception and see if it's picking up the code change, or maybe it's not running on that path that I expected it to. Oh, that's weird. Yeah, that's not right. You know what it could be? Am I in the right? There might be multiple of these. It's just the right view. It is. Okay. The daily view. Something strange is going on. Or let me rephrase that. Computers are deterministic, and my understanding is wrong. And that's pretty normal. That kind of stuff happens. I do anticipate that this should come in here, though, and I don't get why it's not. So I'm going to continue. All right, let's start from the top. We know that it's going to come into the context. So let's just start from the highest level, that surely this much is working, that it's getting the context, right? I would hope so. Refreshing over here. I'm being dumb, y'all. I'm not refreshing the daily view. I'm refreshing the dashboard view. So of course it's not executing that code. Oy. That's not a good sign when you're making those kind of silly mistakes. Okay. Well, now we're on the right page. I'm going to refresh this page. Yeah, now we're getting the exception that I raised. We can take that out. Let's try this again, shall we? I should see a lot more data being printed out now. Okay, great. So we are going down the right path. We're getting the dates. We've got the 1, which is the actual value that was coming out of the task index. But notice that it didn't go in this loop. It didn't print date to check, as best I can tell. So something unexpected happened there. Let's try seeing cat task count and range and see if it's even entering into this method. And I could probably be using a debugger and stepping through, but there are times when it's just easier to do a little print and reload and keep going. Okay, so we got in there, but we didn't get down here, but the answer came back as 1. So that seems to be that is it getting into this if statement? I'm getting confused. That doesn't seem right. I don't know. I'm just going to throw in some other text. That's what happens when I debug sometimes, is just kind of throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. Okay, so it's getting through. It's gone past that if statement that I thought it might go down. So that was anticipated. Like, that made sense. We looked at the dates, and it would be weird if it had gone into this if statement. But why is it not printing here? What's going on? Let's see. I would expect that in while loop happens at least the one time, because if date to check starts out as the start date, then that means it would be January the 13th. And January the 13th is less than or equal to the end date. So I would expect at least one time through that loop. And it does not seem to be the case. Okay, it actually went through twice. Maybe I didn't, you know what it could be? Maybe I didn't save the file. That's irritating, but whatever. What can you do? So it's printing the date, and it's going into the while loop, and it looks like it's printing both the dates, but it's coming back out as 1. So so that means that it must be, so it's incrementing one time, and it's not going the second time. So why not? Date to check. It's not a break. Or maybe it is coming out as task as 2. That's what's happening. Check it out. So I've got this max function here, but notice there's a -1, which I didn't really explain that well to myself, which I'm kind of kicking myself now of why is that. I'm sure I thought I had it right and just left it at that, but I think I left something to be desired. So I think what I'm going to find out in just a second here is that this is coming back as 2. Yep, it is. Okay. Well, that gives me confidence that this method is right. It took longer than I would have liked to conclude that, but based on the description of get all the tasks in a range and be inclusive of the range, and we've got the 2 tasks, one completed and one incomplete, it is returning the right number of there are 2 of them. So let's clear out those print statements. We don't need them anymore. And I think that we can rule out this part as the part where the bug is. I think that is at least that method has the right behavior in and of itself. I think what it amounts to is that this task index is not correct. The way that I'm calculating that is not factoring in everything that it's supposed to. So let's close that other file. And then that gets us to this. And then, so while we're thinking through this problem as a reminder to ourselves, we're going to put 2 is equal to school year get task count. That way it's just a helpful thing to consider as we're trying to figure out what's the right answer. And I think we can also delete this print, and we can delete the print that was up here as well to kind of just clear out the junk that I was adding when I wasn't sure of what's going on. So we're back down here. We need to get the student schedule, and we're on the daily view, and we got to figure out how do we get the right task index for the day. And where this gets tricky is that days can roll over into the next week and look ahead to the future. So what seems to be easy is, I think, maybe not so much. Okay. Maybe I modified, because I think at one point this code worked to my knowledge. So it could be that I modified this method right here and changed it in a way that I didn't anticipate. That could be it. Could be something else. So let's go over there, make sure we understand the students model method there. So students models, and this is get tasks for, just down here. And it looks for an enrollment. An enrollment is the thing that connects students to a grade level. And then it does this. It takes the course that you want the tasks for, and it takes the grade level itself, or Okay, so any task that is for any, well, how much do I explain here? A course can be part of multiple grade levels because in a homeschool class, like for example, my kids are doing, my oldest is a third grader and my younger child is a first grader, but they're doing a shared science course together. So it's possible for a course to be in multiple grades. And so that's kind of what this query is getting at, is that you need to get both the grade levels that aren't tied to, the tasks that aren't tied to a grade level, plus any tasks that are tied to a specific grade level, but not any tasks that are tied to some other grade level that the student is not enrolled in. That's kind of what this set is. And so that's what it's returning, is a query set based on those particular filters. So that's that method. So that seems reasonable. It's going to give us all the tasks for the course. And I think we can leave it at that abstract viewpoint, understanding that there are some advanced filters on it, but we don't really need to care about them. So we've got the tasks for the course, and we're taking out the tasks that are already done. And we want to then use that to figure out what is the next task to display on the daily view. And this is one day in the future. So if you're doing like some set subtraction and you've got your tasks that are all of the tasks and you take out the completed ones and you're looking ahead to the next day, you would want the index on that to be 0. And the reason for that is that's just what's coming up next. You want to basically pull off the next one from the top. So I would expect that this task index actually be 0. I kind of wonder if this is getting messed up because of the dates that we're comparing it to. Like maybe this would be, if this was multiple days away. Well, I'm getting stuck, y'all, to be honest. And this happens periodically, and it probably doesn't make for great streaming to see me squirm a little bit, but I'm trying to think of what is the right logic that's actually expected. We know that the answer for a tomorrow should be let's write it down in comments and struggle through it together. The task index for tomorrow should be 0 for any incomplete tasks. So once you've filtered out all the completed ones, then you want to take 0 if it's for tomorrow. So how do we get that? I think what might be missing here, and the reason this might be getting screwed up, is that this is all of the tasks that are in this range, but I'm not subtracting out in that range which of them are incomplete tasks. I'm just asking for any tasks. So that's where the count might be getting off. But is that right? Because how do we add? We have to factor in, when calculating the index, it's factoring in both complete and incomplete. And it's even more complicated than that, because you can complete a task sometime way in the future. And how does that factor into the math? So, I'm trying to wonder if I should like diagram this out or draw it out, and what would be the best way to do that. Yeah, I think I'm going to unless any of you have suggestions, which I'm all ears for, I'm gonna just kind of sit in silence because I think I'm at a stage where I'm running out of words to explain this better without just thinking on it. So here's the question I'm trying to answer. How do I calculate a task index of 0 properly? That's what we have to do in order to get the right answer, to look up the task for tomorrow. We need to get a 0. Where's that 0 coming from? What is the math to do that? So if we back it up, I always want the daily view for any future-looking task to show something that needs to be completed. And that explains the max. Well, partly, you don't want to, I've got the -1 here, and you don't want to go, the max is here to make sure that it doesn't go below 0. Because if you do a negative index on a query set, Django says, no good. You can't actually do that. So that's what we're having to account for. That's why that max is there. We want 0 in this circumstance, and we aren't getting it because we're asking for a range that is too big. Now let me just make some. Well, I was about to say, what if we took out the completed tasks? But that's not right either, because we don't want to like index into. We don't want to be showing old tasks that are already done. So that can't be part of the solution. We must exclude any tasks that are done. And so we want to treat it as we want to go from a pile of tasks on the top and pull from the top for whatever the next day is and continue. You know, if it's +2 days, then we want to go 1 down. So in theory, okay, that's starting to gel a little bit. So really the count that I want here to be calculating this max is what are not the max number of tasks in this range, what are the incomplete tasks in this range? I think that's the right answer. Because now let's work with a hypothetical method that doesn't exist yet. So if we have let's say we had school year get incomplete tasks, task count in range. That's going to produce the answer we're looking for. Now it's going to say, because what's going to come back? In coming back to our example of today, the 13th, and tomorrow, the 14th, there were 2 tasks, which is why this number was 2, but one of them was done. And so we ended up getting a result back from here of 2, and then we subtracted 1 to make it a 0 based. I'm guessing that's what that -1 is for, which I should comment on after we correct this. But it gives the wrong answer because it does, it looks too far ahead when it should be giving a 0. If instead it had been the number of incomplete tasks in this range, it would have done it would have returned a value of 1, and then we'd get the subtraction of 1, and it would give us the right answer, right? So I think that's the problem, is that the task count there is not the right kind of task. It's just not the right kind of task. So as the solution then, it might be to get the number of incomplete tasks in that range. Yep. So that's perhaps frustrating because I think you can get tasks in a range from a course pretty easily, because tasks by themselves are not necessarily tied to a student. But now when you're talking about incomplete tasks, suddenly you've layered on an extra dimension, because in the system, multiple students could be enrolled in the same grade level. So you could have two students that are enrolled in the same course. So incomplete tasks, if you and I are both enrolled in a course, my incomplete tasks could be different from yours if we are operating at different paces. So that's a wrinkle. So how do we ask this? This is something that is going to be dependent on the student. So maybe this makes sense to be a student method. It's also going to be dependent on all right, let's consider all the variables that are going to go into this hypothetical method. So we've got the method that we need is get incomplete task count in range. That's what we're trying to think through. And in order to get all the pieces of data to do that, we need the student, we need the course, and from a course, there's probably more, because remember when we looked at the implementation of this, it factored in like breaks and other things like that. So the school year is the thing that keeps track of the breaks. So school year, those seem like the pieces of data that go into this. Where is this most reasonable to live as a method? Probably on the student. And it's probably on the student because of that notion of completeness refers to what the student has completed. So, what do we want this method to look like in order to make this correct? Let's assume that we're going to put it on the student. So I want it to look like student, and then get incomplete task count in range, and it needs the course. It needs a start date and an end date. And I think it might need the school year for certain caching benefits, I think. Otherwise, it might be really inefficient because it's going to have to ask for a bunch of things that I believe have already been calculated by the school. Like this isBreak method, if I remember, looks inside of a cache. So the way this works during the request cycle is the school year says, give me all of the breaks, and it puts it into a dictionary or something. Trying to find school breaks by date. Yeah, it's cache property. So it groups them all by date. In other words, there's a bunch of information here that is cached with the school year, so it's going to be beneficial to ask the school year. Which again, that's going to be an annoying attribute of this method signature, because it's not going to be really clear on why you need it. Because you can look at this and say, okay, I get this. I have a student. I want to know what the student has incomplete for this course, and it's over this range. All of those arguments make sense. But to tack on the school year, it's like, well, what is that for? And that's where it gets to be kind of ugly. I don't know that there's any really good way around that, though. So it's going to be a little optimization that in there, but I think it's probably okay. Let me think on this for a minute before I kind of commit to this interface, because it is ugly and I'm not really excited about writing it. But if it's the thing that we need to write to make the code work, then that's what we have to do. And I'm pretty confident, talking this all through, I'm pretty confident that that's the way to get the right solution. That's clearly where this logic breaks down. So I'm pretty sure it's the right action. Hey, welcome, Scalilio. Sorry, Scalilio. Your nick has got my tongue tied up. Scalilio. You're just gonna watch me struggle and laugh. You can laugh at me. That's fine. Thanks for joining in. We're working through through a fairly sticky little or thorny issue, I guess. There's some data that is off by 1, and it's off by 1 in this really obnoxious way. Although your handle is gonna I'm gonna trip up on that. I'm gonna try and get it right one day. Scalilio? I'm trying. Okay, getting back to this. I think we need to go in here and make this method, and what is it going to be able to call, I guess, is the next kind of question. Like, I would love to be able to reuse this range, but I'm afraid that it just doesn't have enough information. And the problem, the reason it's problematic is, well, why is it problematic? Let's dig into that. We're getting down to a level where, I am calculating tasks based purely on, could the task run on this date? That's what this method, this get task count in range, is really doing. It is, it's asking, is today a break? Is it a holiday? So if it's a holiday, it doesn't count as part of the count. And then this course runs on. Every course has some set of days that it's supposed to run on. It's not actually checking if there is a task scheduled for that day, because I don't directly assign a task to a particular day. Everything is dynamically calculated. So that means that I can't match up the answer from this count with a set of existing coursework that the student has already done. So in the modeling diagram, which I haven't brought up in a while, and if y'all are fairly new here, it might help to see it. We've got our model diagram here, and the way that we track whether a task is complete or not is with this extra model called coursework. Coursework, if you can, maybe that's too small still, is this thing that it's got an ID, and then it has 2 foreign keys that are the big important parts. One is to the task and one is to the student. So in other words, it's tracking, did the student complete it? And then it has an extra field to capture the date in which the student did complete the task. So in order to calculate how many incomplete tasks are in a time period, it's really about looking up so not only calculating the task count, but then I think it's going to be, the flow is going to be something like this. I think it's going to be call get task count in range to get the count. Then take all of the tasks for that course for that range and go ahead and exclude the student's work. Is that right? All the income. I don't know if that's right or not. We might have to like loop through things individually. Again, this is like the core logic of the application. So this is the tricky part to get right. So let's do this. Instead of me talking, let's start just banging out a method here and see if it comes out right and see what we get hung up on. Okay, so I'm going to come back over here and we're going to go to what? We've got the students models file, where we're going to put this new crazy long method name. And I don't know that this models file is growing larger than I would like, but the student model is pretty core to the application, so this is okay. Eventually I could refactor this to have fewer of these methods in here, which would be nice, but I don't really know what concept they belong with yet. Maybe there's probably some kind of schedule that is dying to come out of this, where you could probably imagine a kind of business object that says, given all of these parameters, the student and the course and the school year, build me a schedule and ask for query things about it. That might be nice, but I'm not doing that today. And I honestly forget about some of the methods that are already in here that might be useful as we do this. Get the last date of coursework if the course has any. That might be useful. That's for a week. Okay, I don't want to get too tripped up with what's already existing. I can write a version now and come back and refactor if there are methods that I already had. So we're going to come down to the bottom of the student and we're going to say get incomplete task count in range. And we're going to throw it all the parameters that we said we needed to put in there. So I'm basically just looking below at my little comments here, and we've got course, the start date, the end date, the school year, and get the count of incomplete tasks. And we'll say for a course, and then we'll say, to be consistent with the other one, we'll say be inclusive of start and end date. That adds consistency with that other method, because it would be a real nightmare for me if one of these was not inclusive and the other one was. Okay, so there we've got our parameters. Yep, so there's a start. What does this look like now? Maybe we should try and put down the pseudocode, and then I'll come back and write some good tests for all of this when we're done. So how can we build up this range? Well, let's start from that assumption that I was making of that it would be useful to use the task count. So maybe we want to do school year, get task count in range. I'm guessing this isn't going to work, because if it did, I could just probably have done it in the view method. But well, we'll start here just to try it. So this is going to be the task count. And just for the moment, so that my editor is not annoying with me, I'm going to return it, even though that's not the thing you want. Okay. So maybe, I wonder if the answer is as simple as we have the task count, and is this it? Is it just, what if there was, what if you took the same range on the coursework? Okay, I think I might be getting close. So there's, as I said, there's that coursework model that tracks everything that was in there. So what if I took the coursework count for that same time range? So I'm not going to put the full, well, I'll try actually, because I think we might have all the information. So if it would take coursework objects and filter down to the course and the student, and we want the date range. So the completed date is the other field that's on the coursework. So if we say completed date, is the range operator, is that going to be the right one? That would be amazing if it, let's check on the range operator, make sure that includes both, but I think that could be right. What did I do wrong there? Syntax error, positional. Oh, I see it. Student. Here we go. Okay. And this, I guess, is actually self, because we're in this other context. So here's the thought of, we know how many tasks are in that range, and let's take out the work that we find in that range, do a count on the coursework, and whoops, so I guess we actually want that to be a count query. I think that's the answer. That was a lot of thinking to get to something that ends up being only 3 lines, but I think it's going to be right, assuming that the range operator is correct, because it does that kind of set operation that I was trying to get to. And in fact, if that's right, it's kind of begs the question of, do I even want this method? I mean, I'm on the fence, because do I want to shove more stuff into a view? How many times am I going to use this particular method might come into play. A lot of people will really argue strongly for not putting any logic in your views, so I get that. But there is some overhead to having a model with too many methods on it, so there's a balance that I'm trying to strike here. But I'm suddenly feeling very good about this logic itself. So take all of the tasks that could be in that range, and then take all of the coursework that we know to be in that range, because those have dates, and just do the math on it, and it should give the right answer. And getting back to our example, I mean, if we come back to the original problem we're trying to solve, we've got the 13th and the 14th. Those are the 2 dates. Those are the range. One is complete. Let me read your question here and make sure I understand it. 314-ish. Do you care about limiting the earliest a student completed a task here? I think I see what you're saying. Possibly. A lot of this stuff gets a little fuzzy in my head, to be blunt. So it's kind of a squint at it till it seems mostly right, and hope that for the best in some ways, because the worst case scenario that I can imagine is somebody who's like popcorn all over their schedule, like completing items here, there, and my fear is that the logic I've written doesn't account for every case, and it's a pretty well-founded fear. Dates and times and all this kind of set stuff is hard to get perfect. So I don't know if that fully answers your question. Apologies if it doesn't. So I think this is, and maybe you can speak to, like, is there a corner case that you think I might be missing? I'm more than happy to chat about it. So I think the flow that I'm generally trying to put is that daily view needs to show something meaningful, and it's definitely an off by one error in this case. And yeah, and I think that we can actually prove this out multiple. So like, we can come into this daily view, complete this item, and then go to the 15th. And then since we're still on the 13th right now, we can check if the logic is right after we're all done, to see if we got kind of solved it for what seems to be the general case. Still worried about weekends, and like there are other areas where this can get goofy, but I think it should hopefully work for most cases. All right, so let's try and put this in place and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, then we'll go back to the drawing board. Oh, I remember what I was going to do. I was going to check the range operator. So Django query set range. I've searched for this before, so I probably had the same exact question before. Range test is inclusive. I'm glad they've added that one word. That sets my mind at ease. Okay. So I think this is correct. So let's come back in here, and we're going to, I think we're now ready to clean up. So we're going to take out some comments. None of that stuff is necessary. And then we're going to change this max call to be student, which we do have access to, and then get incomplete task count in range. And we're going to give it the course. We're going to give it today. We're going to give it day, and going to give it school year, I believe. And man, that looks ugly, but whatever. Ooh, black just made it. I thought it looked ugly enough as is, but wow, check that out. Good gracious. That is horrid. I like black most of the time, but not in this instance. That looks terrible to me. Okay, I'll stop beating up black now. Black is a great tool in the Python ecosystem. And I'm going to print this out just so we can see it and make sure that it should be 0 task index. So let's restart the local web server. We're going to come back to the daily view this time, not the dashboard, the daily. Refresh the page. Oh, rats. Cannot resolve keyword. Junk. Okay, I see the problem. So we need to change this a little bit. I forgot it. It's not a direct attachment to a course. It's a direct attachment to a course task. So we need to do course task, which then has access to a course here. So it's one more foreign key hop that'll do. So Django will do the proper join, or should do the proper join for that. Hey, look at that. We've got second. Sweet. And it printed the 0 that we expected. Good stuff. Let's get rid of the print. And now let's check one more case to see how that's working. And then we'll add a test and wrap up that issue. And then maybe get back to the other issue, which may be actually related now that I've seen what's going on here. I have a feeling that the logic between the two views is similar, but I don't know for sure. Where did I say I needed to go? I'm blanking out. Oh, right. We're going to test it. So we're going to come into, actually, we're already on this daily view. We're going to mark this complete. So now we have the second task complete, and we're going to refresh the week So we can clearly see the first and second tasks are complete. Now, I expect Friday to show third properly. And it does. Awesome. Which makes sense because what happened? I mean, if we go back and consider it and walk through the logic through our heads, it was calculating an index. The answer, if we're on Friday, needs to be 0 because there's no other work to do on the completed stuff. So how does it get to 0 when it's calculating over the 3-day range? If the old implementation would have skipped ahead 2 because it would have calculated that there's actually 3 tasks in this range, and then it would have subtracted 1 to get a number of 2, but it would have used that as the index, which is 0 base, which would have given us the third task and would have pulled something that doesn't exist. This new revised version calculates that there are 3 as the count, and then subtracts out the 2 that are already complete for an answer of 1, and then it subtracts 1 to get a value of 0 as the index and pulls the proper task. So hooray, the logic seems to hold out. Okay, now what other junk do I have in here? Okay, that's it. Good. So we've got this new method, which we should write a test for to prove that it works. I'm not going to write a lot of tests for it. Just one. Let's do one like happy path test that has 2 tasks. This is the test. It's got 2 tasks in it. One piece of coursework so that one of those tasks is completed, and then the answer should be 1. 2 minus 1 is 1. So we're going to move to the students test models file where these tests exist, and we'll come down to we'll go to the next class. That gets us to the bottom, and we will do test. What is this called? Test get incomplete task count in range. Oh my word. Too long. The student can get the count of incomplete tasks for a course. That's what we want to confirm. That's the behavior that the student should have. And I mean, if you think about that, this is probably the other signal that this is not a great method. Like, this is about, we're asking the student about information on the course. That should be kind of a warning sign. Or it's at least one in my head of something that I would like to correct in the future. But I'm not going to revisit all this today. Sometimes, like I said, my spouse is experiencing this problem now, and she would like this to work, and I would like it to work for her. So I'm willing to make a less than perfect solution if it gets the job done. And I might revisit it at some point in the future, but maybe not. What do we need? We need a student, and I need that student to be enrolled in order for this to work properly. And so we're going to use the Enrollment Factory, and the Enrollment Factory will create a student that is in an appropriate grade level. So we'll have an enrollment, and we can access the student through there, and then we'll say we need a course task. So course task, which is going to take what? Well, I think because of the way courses and grades have to be connected, I need to create this separately. So we're going to create a course. So use the course factory, and the course factory has grade levels, and we say make a list here and do this. So that should make the course be connected to the grade level that the student's enrolled in. So that's all good. And then we can do course equal course. like that. And then we can do a course work factory, which is going to take the student as one attribute, and then the well, it just needs a course task. It doesn't really matter which one, and we can connect it to the course in that. So that gives us the two tasks, and this is the course task factory, and the student is coming from the enrollment. Okay. So I think that's the data setup that we need for this test. The other bits that are going to be relevant is I want to pick a date range that includes, well, what's it going to include? It just needs to include the coursework completed date. So let's pull this out here. So now let's say, and to keep this cleaner, let's assign the student to a local variable. Otherwise, I'm doing a bunch of extra dot notation, which I don't need to do. Now we can take out this enrollment here, and then we can have a clear indicator of student get incomplete task count. And now we got to give it all of the stuff, right? Shoot, it needs a school year, which is part of this as well. So that's going to come from the grade level. So we can do the school year is going to be enrollment, grade level, school year. Now we pass in all of the attributes that this crazy method needs. So let's do course, and let's make the start date be the start date of the coursework. So coursework completed date. Okay, and then we want to include a range that has 2 dates in it to make sure we get the extra task that is there. In fact, let's kind of put this in an order, a more logical, because this is going to create linearly, and so it's more logical that the coursework would happen before. So now we can do coursework completed date plus date time delta of 1 day. So that's 2 days, and then pass in the school year. All of that goes in, and that should return a count. We'll say it's the incomplete task count. And at the bottom, we want to assert that the incomplete task count is equal to 1. That's what I expect. Cool. Test passed. All right. Now, moment of truth. I'm not sure that the full test suite is going to pass because I have a feeling I baked in the wrong expectations into some of those daily tests, and so they might fail, in which case we're going to have to patch them up. I'm not sure if this is good or bad, is that the test passed, which probably means that the whole reason I didn't catch this bug in the first place is that my tests for that daily view weren't good enough. The data that was in them did not account for this circumstance that my spouse encountered. So there's kind of a lesson for you. Is like you can see here at the bottom, I have 100% test coverage. That means I've touched every line of code, but it doesn't mean I've touched every logical condition that's possible in the test suite. So even though I'm a big proponent of writing tests, and I think tests are generally hugely valuable, you can still miss things, as was the case here. All right. So this is, I think that's everything. We've got the new counter, or the new method being in use. We've got the actual method itself. We've got the test for it, and we've got this other change that I'm going to commit. It's a style change, but y'all don't really need to care about it right now. I'm just going to include it anyway. And this is for not 288. I made an issue for this earlier today. 287. Okay. So let's commit this and then move on to the next bit. And I don't know we're going to get to the third bug, but we'll try. So this is going to fix daily view task indexing for number 287. Right? 287, yep. Okay, I think we're ready to move on to the other half of this problem that she found. And I'm going to restore, to make sure that it matches with the problem she described, I'm going to restore this task just so we have a consistent point of view here. And I'm going to basically, this will do is it should delete this coursework. So uncheck it, and now, yeah, undid the one task. So now if we return to the week view, we'll get back to just one of them is complete, and then we can go to the page that she was concerned about, which is this view. Now, let's refresh this page, and you can see the problem here. So this planned completion is supposed to be useful, not unuseful like it is right now. That's maybe stating the obvious, but just to highlight it, these things are listed on the same date. So the calculation that's happening for the incomplete tasks are not considering the completed tasks, and don't know why. That's what we need to go check out. So this is the student course view, I think, is what I called it. So it's probably in this file. Here it is, the student course view. And actually, this might be one where we can actually look at the debug data and see if it's helpful, although it may not be. But we'll start there. Sometimes it is helpful to actually see the shape of the context data to know what to look for. So we'll come down to templates, we'll come open up the context window, and you can see the task items here. And we've got first and second and third. So the problem is definitely right here. So note, coursework, we just did this tonight. And so I know that the completed date associated with that coursework is the 13th. So what that's telling me is, and I know that that's not wrong. So what that's telling me is that the planned date calculation, however I'm doing that, is incorrect. And that's what we have to go fix. So we'll close this test view so we can have a bigger field of vision here. And we're going to find the planned date where it gets added. So we're going to have to stare at this for a little while until we figure out what's going on with this chunk of code. Okay. And it looks like it's got a little helper method to get the coursework as well. All right. So what is this one doing? We've got all of the tasks for this course. And we saw earlier this was a query set. That it did a specialized query set, but it gave you every task. So that is a valid abstraction to just think like this is a query set that returns all of the course tasks. It's doing a select related. That's just an optimization part. So that's accurate. And going to give us an accurate list of everything that the student is expected to do. Okay, so far so good. This view is supposed to show all of the course tasks. And we've got it with there's a flag on this view that says to show the completed tasks. By default, it actually comes out in this version. So this version is also wrong. Like setting aside the fact that the completed task, it has a matching completed task. It's just like ignoring the fact that the date is for something else. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. What that tells me is that the plan date is incorrect. It needs to factor that in. And is this correct? Maybe it... Okay. I think what's happening is this is not properly incrementing the next course day. Yeah, that seems like the issue. So the next course day that I have here, it is it's figuring out what to run next, but it needs to account for, this is in an if clause and this is in the elif clause. And so this, like if we consider this examples, consider where this started. So next course day was set to either today or I don't know which, well, let's see, it wasn't a break and it runs on today. The course runs today. So the next course day was today. And that's fine to start, but what should have happened is that in here, we should have said something like, if the coursework, okay, less words, more code. So let's say let's pull out the coursework and assign it to a local variable so we can see it. So coursework by task, course task. I'm just basically, I'm taking out this line right here so that we can work with it and we don't have to get it from this task item dictionary. So that was a refactor that did nothing more than assign to a local variable. Now that we've got it. Now we can say, I'm going to hack this in and see if it is the right solution, and then we can write the test to correct this. So if the coursework completed date is equal to the next course day, then we want to bump the next course day. I think that's what we want to do. I think this will have the impact that we want. Let's try it. So now we're on this main view. Good. It went to 14 and 15. So it went through the coursework. It found it. Okay, there was some coursework. That means that I can't show this planned completion day for that day because it's already done. And then if we turn this on, we can finally see the right sequence. Cool. I'm glad that was an easier one to think through. That the last one took an hour and 15 minutes. This one only took 5 or so. That's an improvement. I know, well, I don't know actually. Let's try and run the test suite. I have a feeling it's going to fail and say that I don't have test coverage for that condition because, again, this was a scenario that my wife discovered as she was using the site. So it's very likely that this is that my test data does not cover this condition, and we probably need a test for it. And since my test suite will fail if I don't have 100% coverage, boom, there's the line that I expected to fail. And it's line 203 in the views file, which we're on 203. What? Homeschool students views. Oh, no. I'm misreading that. It's line 120. I got the numbers backwards. That was the line we were on, 120. Okay. So before we can move on, since I have to have 100% test coverage in order for my CI system to pass, we need to check this line of code. And I'm going to leave a little comment here with this chunk of code. So advance the next course day to deconflict with coursework. That's really what this is doing. And this might be one where we can go and augment an existing test rather than write a brand new test for this, because I don't know that we need a full test. So let's go try and find the test views file that has this. And I probably have, if I'm consistent, yep, there it is. So what test do I have in here to start? So we've got my standard unauthenticated test. We have our happy path test that actually shows that it will render with a 200. We have some checking to make sure that you can't do this for some other student that's not your own. And then we check for some context data and a course that runs its own, course that runs today shows its tasks. I can tell you right now, looking at this, these are older tests because I have changed some of my styling here. One thing that I've changed that bit me on this project is that I switched to including documentation strings with my tests, because I was going with just test method names and was finding that I didn't have enough context to understand what was going on. This one though this is pretty close. So I feel like this one could include what we desire. Hold on. With some adjustment. Dang it. Screwed up that process. All right, I terminated the process. Sorry. Let's turn on the virtual environment. I wanted it with debug. There we go. So what's the context we need to check? It is the task items. And I want to check that the date here, or the date for something that is planned, does not conflict with the completed date. That's the condition. I'm surprised that the test that we have does not do that. Yeah, that puzzles me. It could be how I wrote this test and the data that I put in here. because this is showing with completed tasks. This is the scenario we want to cover. Well, sorry for the pop. I just realized that was totally a noise that was probably annoying. Okay. What is the completed date of that course task? The coursework. Here's a coursework. What's the completed date for it? Is it the same as today? They're not. Oh, look at that. 210 and 212. What is going on there? I probably crafted this thing in such a specific way. Yeah, look at this thing. It only runs on 2 days of the week. And wow, that's weird. It's a weird test, Matt. I even added a couple days to it. And then why did I do it this way? Again, I have no comment to help me here, so I'm kind of flying in blind of like what's up. And I also, here's the other problem is freeze time. I don't know if any of you have used freeze time. Freeze time is a way to do what it sounds like. It takes the datetime module and makes sure that whatever time you have is deterministic. And this has a bunch of advantages because dealing with dates, and if you're running tests, automated tests, if you don't control the time, then you are subject to whatever the real time is. And if you're doing stuff like I'm doing with scheduling, then it's going to wreak havoc on your test suite. It's very hard to write a test that works with whatever dynamic times there are. It's possible, and I do it some places, but it's trickier. And so I have to rely on comments of like, this is back in February. I guess this is when I wrote this. It's about almost nearly a year ago now. So that was a Monday. That's weird. So I froze the time to be a Monday and looked at this student view, which only runs on Wednesday and Thursday. Like there's some weird stuff that I built into the setup of this thing that I'm not real clear on why I did it that way. So maybe we can simplify this to be friendlier. Yeah. And yep, let's just start with that. Okay, I am confident that this is the right code down here. So I don't think we need to stare at that. I think we just need to look at the test code. So we've got this test, and we'll add a test doc string that was missing. Say completed tasks appear in the context when the query flag is present. That's what it's trying to test. Okay, then returning to the data, we've got an enrollment that has an appropriate user connected to the student and the grade level. Looks like the test is pulling out those two attributes for easier access. That's fine. Again, I don't really understand why I did this days of the week modification here. It's pretty strange. I wonder if it accounted for some other I bet I tried to do this game where I needed coverage somewhere else. So I probably changed this to, so this might be one where like, if I change this test, we might uncover the other line that I was probably trying to touch. So before I go changing this too much, I think what I'm going to do is copy this test just in case. if there nothing becomes of it, if I'm wrong about this guess, then it's fine. We just go delete this other test that's commented out, and it's all no harm, no foul. But in case I'm wrong, and I did have a weird reason for including that, I want to make sure that it's still there and recoverable without having to fiddle around with Git. So let's do this is saying this is a Monday. Let's change this course factory to not care about those 2 days of the week. Okay. And now this task should appear on that Monday, the 10th. But the plan date is now incorrect because it's +2. And I don't know why I called this today. I don't know why I cared about that. It's not, yeah, I don't get it. What does today have to do with adding 2 days to now? Like it just doesn't compute. So I think that's wrong. So instead of calling it today, let's call it what it is, or what it's supposed to be, which is the 11th, which was a Tuesday. And we're going to change this to a 1. And that's actually brings it in line to being the Tuesday. Okay. And the completed date should be time zone. Remember, time is frozen. Should be the 10th. And I've created the coursework. And the coursework defaults to the date, but I think everything is frozen. So that should all be good. And then I learned this later on that you don't have to call timezone.now. Timezone comes from Django. It's Django utils timezone. And it gives you access to like UTC times and stuff. And there's some other methods in there. One of them is called local date. So you can get timezone.now, which gives you a date time instance. But local date is a method that gives you a date version of that. So it essentially does timezone.now.date, but gives you a cleaner way to look at it. So that's why I'm changing this. Okay. So the test passes. And we've now, so what do we have? We have today in this thing, local date, is actually the Monday, because that was what time was frozen to. The plan date is the 1 day ahead that we expected. We've corrected the local data to be realistic. Now the question is there hidden stuff in here that, like I said, might be covering other lines that I was unaware of? This is where we're going to find out. Hopefully not. Hopefully it was just not a great test. It's interesting when you can look back at your own code and think like, what was I thinking? It doesn't make any sense. We're going to find out here really quickly. Nope, it just was a nonsensical test. I bet I copied it and I just didn't copy enough. It happens. So we were able to give that a doc string. We're able to test that the coursework, I don't actually know that we need this assertion at the bottom that the coursework is the local date. It doesn't hurt to keep it, so I'll keep it. And the other thing that I can change is kind of stop doing this assert context method. So instead, let's change it to, I switched to PyTest, using PyTest more heavily after this time period. So if we change this to get context instead, and then do this to close it off and change it to an equality, and then delete that and that. I think, well, try that. Okay. I think it should be equivalent to what it was doing before with a cleaner, I think it's a little cleaner than that other style. Okay. Let's look at what we changed. I simplified the course factory there. I changed that to be more descriptive of what it really was. It's not a today. And then we cleaned up the assertions. And in the process of changing the dates and that the real change that made this got us to 100% coverage was the fact that I took off this date, so it actually ran on the right dates to actually go into that if statement that we were trying to hit. And then here's the actual change in the view to do the proper checking to increment the date as we need to. So that completes that chunk of work. Whoops. What's up? Oh, cool, even better. Look at that. That's so cool. So black improved the formatting even more to something nicer and tighter. Great. So this fixes the student course view to show proper planned dates. And this fixes the issue. The whole issue is now done. Everything that my wife had emailed me and had included details, and I included some of those in that issue, but I didn't include everything. But this captures everything that she was talking about. Okay. Last thing. And if it doesn't go quickly, then we'll throw in the towel. But it's one that I would like to get correct. The thing that I observed is that when someone is onboarding, there is what is there? There are steps to create all the key pieces of data. And the key pieces are, this is all about homeschooling, so the key pieces are a school year, a grade level, a course, and a task. And if you have that full set, then you have enough to get started to understand, here's how I build this out. And what I found is when I went through that process, the course that was created was not correct. So I think what happened is I made some changes in the data model since then, and I didn't account for those changes. And I probably left off some hidden fields is the reality. I'm hoping it's a pretty simple set of change, but let me walk you through it. And actually, while we're doing it, we probably can use the network inspector to see everything as well, to see what's going on. So let's come over to the app, and we're going to log out here. We're going to sign up with a new account so we can get into the onboarding flow. I'm going to call it, doesn't really matter what it's called, but I'm going to call it course demo at somewhere.com, and we'll give it a password. One thing I've changed that is fairly new is that I put this process in place. It requires email confirmation now. It's something I wanted to do, and it's a step that's in place. It's not sending real emails right now, so that's not a big deal. But in order to actually finish a sign in for a new test account, I have to go to this email that's dumped into the console and open up a tab and change it from HTTP to HTTPS. That's kind of annoying. I might make that configurable in the future because it's not true for local development. By completing this, it will finish the process of creating my account and authenticating it and verifying. That's really the word I was looking for. And it drops you into this start flow. You might have noticed that weird long pause with the big triangle. And what that triangle was is actually the top of this icon over here. It's the first icon that appears. But that only really happens because I'm running Tailwind with a big gigantic CSS file and it's not optimized. So it's trying to load all that through my development web server, and sometimes it slows down. In reality, that doesn't happen on production. Okay, so here we are with a brand new account, and we're going to walk through this flow together really quick. It only takes a minute. So I'm going to create my school year. I'm going to do it for the same thing that my wife did. So my kids started school today because we do it on the calendar year. And we'll say we'll go to the end of this of 21 and walk through the same stuff. And so I'm going to create a school year, give it some dates. Oh, and I also said I wanted to look at the network traffic. So we're going to turn that on too. So now we're here and we're going to disable the cache, and we want to, I think this is a recording. This UI is confusing to me. Does this button mean you're going to record the network log now? I think it does, because now it looks like if I wasn't clicking it, now it looks like, is it paused? Or does it mean I'm going to pause? I don't, maybe that's just hard to convey. Anyway, so we're going to continue and create another third grade. Okay, it's doing recording. It's good. And I'm recording it so that we can see the post parameters on what is actually submitted. So the request was a form data request. It included my CSRF token. It included the school year object, and it included the name. Those are the parameters. So here's the one I think this is where it's going to break, I believe. So all I was asking for in this flow is the name of the course. And so let's just call it math. Everybody, well, not everybody likes math, but everybody takes math at some level, or maths if you're not in the States. I don't actually know what other countries say maths in plural. I'm pretty sure the UK does, and I believe Australia does. I don't know. Maybe it's just everywhere but the US, perhaps. I don't know. And so we've got a form down here somewhere for this course. Trying to find it. Yep, I think this is going to be the problem. So I've got some hidden values on this form, and it's submitting the grade level, so it's connecting to the right grade level and it's connecting to the right duration. What it's not doing is setting a couple of attributes that were added to the course, or that are just part of the course. And so let's go follow this through so you can see what that looks like when you come out the other side. So we're going to add a course, and then we'll say, I don't know, test. And the thing that clued me in right away that I got this wrong, well, actually, before we do that, let's go look at the post here. So here's the information. It was math, duration 30, grade level 11 with a token. All good. The thing that clued me in that I got it wrong is I came down here to my third grade, and I saw immediately that this was inactive. This course I just created was inactive, which is super annoying. So then I went to edit the course, and not only was it inactive, it's not set to run on any days of the week, which is also annoying. So what's missing is some more hidden fields on my form. I need to go fill those out, and then it should be fine. So let's go do that. And I think this will just be a template change. I don't think I have to do anything else. So we're going to go to the Start Course template, and we're going to go to that same area that we were in. And it's right here. That is what we really care about. So these are going to be hidden fields. So we want a hidden field. And the thing that we want to add, let's go to the course models. There's an isActive Boolean. What do we tell Django to make it a Boolean look like a Boolean? Well, that's a good question. Well, we're going to try it. So let's call it isActive, because that is the name of the field. And I don't know if it just needs to be on. That's probably it. Let me actually, I have some tests that we can check. I'm pretty sure it's on. Yeah, because these are also meant to be like Booleans. And so the string value of on will kind of represent a Boolean for what is what the browser, I think, will send usually. So we need isActive. And then the other thing is I want this to run on, users are going to be able to modify their course if they didn't want it on a certain date. But in my estimation, an average school year will run Monday through Friday. And so if someone is signing up for the service the first time, I don't want them to have to think about that. I just want to put it on what they're most likely going to want anyway for the course, and they can correct it later. So what I want to do is put in the date Booleans that I have, and I think this should be enough to make it run the days that I expect. Okay, so we've changed that, and now we can come back to the school year, and I don't know that did I make it possible to delete a course yet? I haven't. Rats. All right, well, okay. I'm gonna have to log out for a minute, and I'm gonna log in as the test user and delete that course, and then go back to that account. You know what? Forget it. I'll just create a new one. It's fine. And we'll be able to see the flow again. So course demo 2 at somewhere.com and some password. And we're going to clear out some stuff. So that should have sent over an email. And we can take the link and open it up. Great. And then finally, let's go through here. Last couple of steps. Let's actually bring this back up. We're recording the log. So again, same dates that I had before. We're not changing that. Got our school year. Posting that. And that posted the data we wanted. School's included as a hidden field, and then there are the 2 date attributes. And we'll create a 3rd grade level. Let's going to move on to the next one. So there was the grade level, which is now connecting the school year and the grade level. You kind of see how these are pieces in a chain or a hierarchy that all go together. And now here's the important one, is we want to make sure that this is all going to be correct at the end. So we're just going to create the course. Hopefully it's posted all of our hidden fields that we care about. Here are all the parameters. So it's got the isActive and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think I spelled them all right. That's going to be the other thing to check. So after we get through here, we'll check on the course and make sure that it matches the expectation. Okay, so we come down here. Oh, good. So already we know that it's not inactive, or I know that it's not inactive because that's not how it will display. And because it's not inactive, it's showing when it's running, and it's saying it's running Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. R is Thursday. That's something that I think I took from my time at my university. I think they called it R, and I don't know if that's even normal, if others do that, but it's what I've done for this application, and I think it makes enough sense. Thursday. Anyway, and so you can see here all of those dates are checked, and we're all good there. So that was thankfully a nice, not too challenging change. In the end, it just ended up being a handful of hidden attributes to put onto the course start form. Okay, and then we'll say add attributes to course start form. And that fixes number 288. 288. Okay. All right. That's gonna bring us to, I think, where we want to be this evening. So I didn't actually get to the things I wanted to. I have a little bit been chipping away at what I talked about last week. I've been saying that I'm trying to get enough of the site together so that I can launch it, so that anybody who wants to start using the service can do so. But before I do that, I want to make it friendly for sharing, because a big important part of this is that it needs to have, it doesn't need to, but it will help it grow if people are able to share on the platforms that they care about, because at certain attributes, well, of a lot of communities, but this homeschool community in particular, is that they're a pretty tight-knit group, and they share things and talk and do those kind of things that you might expect from a lot of social groups. But I want to make the site friendly to that, so that if somebody takes the website and shares a link to it, and it goes on, say, Facebook or goes on Twitter, that there's enough metadata added to those spaces so that those services will import a meaningful, like what do they call them, Twitter cards or whatever, the full thing that they would show in that kind of UI on those platforms. If you don't include that data, then the best that those platforms can do, or the best that they'll try to do, is just the link itself. And I want to put my best foot forward on what people see, and in terms of setting some like marketing copy that is compelling and goes to the product positioning. And so all of the things that are going into this launch are really about adding that little bit of polish that, the app is not done. And as you saw tonight, there are bugs in there that have to be resolved before it's going to be super useful for a large audience. But I speculate that that because my spouse is an active customer and is planning to use this tool for the entire school year, that the big bugs, the big problem showstoppers that she would experience as a user, I am motivated to help my spouse to make sure that the site works for her. And so given that I'm going to make the site work for her, I have confidence that it's at least possible to make the site work for others. So she doesn't care about the stuff that you see in front of you here on launching, because she's already in the app. But if I want to have a second, third, fourth customer that use it, they need to be able to be nurtured into understanding what the product is, and then go from there. So this is my list of things that I thought I might get to tonight, until I got this email from my spouse, about 4 or 5 hours ago, saying, hey, I got this big bug that's really affecting my ability to do stuff. And so next week, if I haven't done any of this in the intervening time, because outside of doing coding in the evening, I'm trying to learn Chinese and learn how to play guitar, and so I've got other things that are going on in my life. But if I don't code, you'll see all of these kind of issues tackled, and most likely I'll be working on these metadata ones because they're important. But frankly, though, before I can really get to these, I have to have something appropriate to say. And if I can show you the way that the app looks right now. This is the domain, the schooldesk.app. If you look through here, I'll get to your question in just a second, drop. But if you look through here, the copy is okay, but it's not super great. And it doesn't really speak to my audience as well. So this is the area that I need to improve first. And then once I have the language tightened up here, then I can actually take some of that language and apply it to the metadata tags that I want to be able to share on those platforms. Getting to your question, 1x dropshot. Python is not the only language I know. It is my preferred language. This should be a fun little exercise of what do I know or have I used professionally? Let's see. So going back to college, let's see, I did C, C++, and then I did Java in grad school and at work, and I've done Python professionally. I've done Perl professionally. I've done C# professionally, JavaScript professionally. And then I learned Erlang once upon a time. I learned Ruby as well. And Rust is another one. Is that it? But I mean, I'm not doing this to brag. I'm just trying to these are all the languages that I've experienced. And it's what I find interesting is that if you look at that language list, I don't know how many languages you're familiar with, but out of that list, most of them are in the same family. So they all kind of have a lineage, right? And a lot of them, their lineage is the C programming language. Okay, yeah, I think Python is a great first language to learn. Thinking back to my time in college, so I graduated from school in 2006. And they taught me C++ there, and I don't wish that on anybody. C++ is fine. I'm not going to sit here and slam on it. I just think it's a hard language for beginners to learn, and that's what I was taught in school. And so I didn't think fondly of programming for a long time because of my experience. But a lot of languages, they come back to having a very similar heritage in the C programming language. So a lot of the constructs that you'll see of if statements, for loops and stuff, they all kind of look like variants of C in one form or the other. The exceptions to that, or at least on the list that I've put out there, is Erlang. Erlang is it's what's considered a functional programming language, which is a different paradigm from those other types. So I don't have time to get into all of that, but if you stick with Python, I think you won't go wrong, because I love a lot of aspects about Python. Python is a great web language. It's a great language for data science. It's a great language for cloud stuff like AWS, GCP. There's a lot of tools that are available that use Python. So I find Python to be an extremely versatile language. So yeah, stick with Python, and I think you'll have a good experience. So I think that kind of concludes what I want to cover this evening. I want to thank you all for joining in. Hopefully you learned something in my bug exploration process. You at least saw the way my brain thinks. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but that's what we did tonight. So next time we will probably tackle some of these. Once we get through the launch stuff, I have other ideas of functionality that I want to start adding and exploring. But to be honest, I'm going to continuously prioritize the need of my customer to make sure that the app is doing what it needs to be doing. And so anything that I want to do in addition is it's secondary to the overall objective of make a tool that works for my spouse. So that's going to be it for me. Thank you all for joining in, and have a great evening. Take care.